Sleep light.
Okay, we'll call the special meeting to order. Well, I'll stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance just because I made a I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Because I missed it the first time.
That's right. Thank you. Roll call to council.
Fran Walker.
Here.
John Jones.
Here.
Josh Putnam.
Here.
James McMahon.
Good evening.
Gary Halsey. Clint Steiger.
Here.
Okay, so the special meeting tonight is to authorize the mayor to sign a letter of engagement with Lighthouse Law firm. And we have Jeff here from the Lighthouse regarding the condemnation property. Do you want to give us a brief presentation, Jeff? That would be great.
Yeah. So there are actually two separate, thank you. Okay, again, for the record, my name is Jeff Terraday. I'm with the Lighthouse Law Group. There are two separate engagement letters that we're proposing for our scope of services. One for the all of the Valentine Avenue right-of-way acquisition that's within the city of Pacific and not yet acquired by the time next week rolls around when you're asked to adopt the condemnation ordinance. So that may be as few as 5 or 10 parcels. But that would be under the general sort of Valentine Way engagement letter. There's a second engagement letter for the Gordon Trucking parcels, and when I say Gordon Trucking, I understand that there are various different properties that may be owned by related entities, so I'm kind of using that in a general term. But there's a separate engagement letter for that for a couple of reasons. One is that while the Gordon Trucking property does have a right-of-way acquisition component along Valentine, there's also right-of-way and other property that may be needed for the Stewart Road project. And because they're interrelated and it can be difficult to separate those two, we're just going to treat that entire acquisition as a separate animal, and we've proposed a separate engagement letter for that work. So that's why we have two separate engagement letters. The other thing I want to call your attention to, because this is a little unusual, most of the time when you engage a lawyer, it's just the client and the lawyer, all right? In this case, I essentially have, or at least the arrangement that I'm proposing is that I have two clients, the City of Pacific and the City of Sumner, all right? So my letter discusses that dual representation, and it explains that I don't perceive that there would be any conflict of interest today between the City of Sumner and the City of Pacific vis-a-vis my scope of work, okay? That doesn't mean that you might not get sideways on some other thing that I'm not working on, but at least with respect to what I'm working on, it looks like the two cities have unified interests. If at any time I become aware of a situation where it appears to me that the cities do not have unified interests and they are actually having conflicting interests, I will bring that to both cities' attention and will make a determination at that time about how to move forward as far as, do I drop out from representing one city? Do I drop out from representing both cities? We'll cross that bridge if and when we get there. I don't anticipate that will happen, but the letter does explain how that process works. So I think that's, the rest of it's pretty much, your typical standard attorney engagement letter. So happy to answer any questions.
Okay, questions from council?
I move to authorize the mayor to sign the letter of engagement on the Lighthouse Law.
Second.
Discussion?
And the reason for the need to do this agreement now prior to the proposed condemnation ordinance, because there's legal preparation work to be done to get that in effect.
Thank you for asking that question. It's a very good question. Because we talked about, when I first met with the mayor last week, she explained that, well, action items aren't until the 12th, and so we really couldn't technically hire you until the 12th. And I persuaded her to try to have a special meeting for this, for that exact reason, that because the time frame is so short, and because the same reason we are proposing this emergency ordinance is because the time frame is so short, and it's so, the critical path is such that we really need at the very least, we need the right to possession and use of these parcels, you know, yesterday, essentially. And we plan, assuming that the council approves the engagement letter, we plan to start work this week on getting all of the pleadings ready to be filed in court next week. So in the event that the city council does move forward with the condemnation ordinance next week, we would theoretically be ready to do our filing on Tuesday or Wednesday next week. And that's the reason why we're asking for action tonight and not next week, because there is some ramp up that needs to happen. And if we were to wait until a week from Tuesday to do that work, it could delay filing for perhaps another week or so. So just in the interest of the project, we want to keep this on the fast track.
Would it also be fair to say that getting started on the pleadings now does strengthen our position in managing some negotiated acquisition without having to file? If we are prepared to file, they might be more likely to take it seriously without actually having to file?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. It's hard for me to speculate about how each individual property owner might perceive that. There might be some who, when faced with a possible summons getting served on them on, you know, Tuesday the 13th, they might be so adverse to the prospect of any kind of litigation at all that they might be more motivated to at least give use and possession. Because that's really all that Ted has been asking for at this point is use and possession, not necessarily even a final determination about what the city might owe the property owner, just use and possession so the project can move forward on schedule. So it could be that there are property owners that have that in their mind. You know, I don't really want to go through this litigation headache. And the reality is that property owners can avoid it by entering into these possession and use agreements. They're not waiving their right to argue about just compensation down the road. They're just allowing the project to stay on the fast track. So it's possible that some of them might see it that way.
Other questions from council?
Just to point out, the mayor, my little side conversation here, I think in our meeting, our agenda packet, it only has the one letter of engagement.
Passed out separately.
Oh, we've got, okay, yeah, so there, and the only difference between the two is that one's limited to court and the other list that we talked about.
Yeah, the rates are identical, the terms of engagement are identical, the travel time rate is identical. The only difference is that we specifically called out Gordon Trucking because there's an element of Gordon Trucking that extends beyond the Valentine project.
Okay, good, thank you.
Any other comments from council? Comments from the audience?
I have one question. Are we just going to engage him
We need to come up to the podium.
just for this specific project? You want me to come up and tell everybody who I am?
Yes, please.
Who are you?
For the record.
I'm not sure tonight. Shirley Thompson, 416 Second Avenue, Southeast and Pacific. Are we engaging him just for this Valentine project?
Yes.
Yeah, it's just for the property.
Just for that one? Okay, thank you. Welcome.
Any other comments from the audience?
I guess I understand about dealing with Gordon Trucking as a whole, but I think it's going to be, are your sense going to be split based on frontage footage or
Yeah, it's a good question.
or time spent?
We're going to, as much as we can, allocate as evenly and fairly as we can our time that is attributable to the Valentine project and the amount of our time that's attributable to the Stewart Road project. And so I will say, though, it's a good question, because there will be pieces of it that really can't be, perfectly separated with precision like that. So there's going to be
60/40 on something.
Yeah, so to tell you the truth, I haven't come up with an exact formula for how we're going to do those breakouts, but it is our intent that we would break out a portion of those pieces that aren't obvious and find some formula to attribute a piece of it to Valentine and a piece of it to Stewart.
Any other comments? Any further comments from council?
If there's any confusion about who the village is under.
Well, actually,
Oh, he's still here.
the Valentine bill would be good as under.
Okay, any other comments from council? Okay, roll call of council.
Fred Walker. John Jones.
Aye.
John Putnam.
Aye.
James McMahon.
Aye.
Gary Holty.
Aye.
Clint Spider.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Being no further business, we're adjourned. Thank you very much.